Emil, it's Emil Guillermo. Hey, I got this weird shadow here. I gotta deal with that shadow. I can't, I can't take it. I can't take the shadow. Has it always been there? It's like, it's like a spot right there. Like, all right, it's gonna move. It's like follow the bouncing ball. If you're watching this live, you're probably gonna say, "Oh, Emil has really lost it now. He's really lost it now." But the swish still works. Hi, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout. I'm standing in front of my vote t-shirt because I want you to vote. My vote with the uterine T there. Isn't that clever there? The uterine T? The uterus in the sexual alphabet. It's a T, the uterus. And man, the vote is coming up November 5th. But I like to talk, before we get into today, we're going to talk about Mitzi Gaynor. I love Mitzi Gaynor because I love blondes, right? I mean, that's just the thing. Filipinos we're conditioned to love blondes because of history, because of the way history worked. And so I always loved Mitzi Gaynor. I saw her in South Pacific. Actually, other people saw her on South Pacific, and they knew my name was Emil. So they said, "Oh, you're Emil, like the guy in South Pacific." No. But anyway, we're going to talk about that today. I'm doing this special show, and I'll explain. But first, as I said, we are just weeks away from November 5th, the big day, right? You're going to vote. I hope you vote. There it is, the uterine T. You got to vote. Now, coming up November 4th is a performance I'm doing in San Francisco at the Marsh, and I want to invite you all. Now, you can do sliding scale. You can see it streamed online on the Marsh's site. Go to themarsh.org/Monday.nights-marsh-stream. Oh my God. It's on the stream there, but it's the Monday Night Marsh, their program every Monday. You can see it live. I prefer you see it in person. I haven't seen some of you in a long time in person. Go to themarsh.org/Monday-night-marsh-stream, and there's a place that you click for tickets, and you get for tickets. It's a sliding scale. Pay very little or pay a lot. All the money goes to the Marsh, not to me. And it's because I support the Marsh. I want to see the Marsh supported. They're a great institution for the things that I do: live, solo theater, performance theater. 1062 Valencia Street. That's where you can see me at the Marsh, San Francisco. They got one in Berkeley, but I'm in San Francisco. Doors open 6:30, show at 7. And that's, of course, on Election Eve, the 4th. I know you already voted, right? Because in California, we started voting in October early. I voted on my birthday. And I was able to track my ballot. They got my ballot. I feel good. I'm the model minority. I voted. Anyway, the show I'm doing is called Trans Dad. And that's an election issue. That's an election issue now. And I'll talk about that a little bit, and then I'll go into the part of my show. Emil Amok, Los NPR host, wily Filipino vegan trans dad. I'll go into part of my show, an excerpt, 20 minutes, a way to work out that 20 minutes right there. Come see me live in person. I'd love to see you. I share the stage with 2 other performers that night. Doors at 6:30. Show starts at 7. Probably over by 8:15, 8:30. I don't know. Should be quick, but there's 3 performers. I'm in the middle. Emil Amok Guillermo. They leave out the Amok part in the website, but it's me. It's me, Emil Amok Guillermo. So check out the tickets in person. Of course, you can stream via Zoom. Click on the Marsh's website to check that out. And that's how it goes. So I hope you can make it. I know the vote is so important, but I know you are also curious about election eve, right? I mean, maybe just to dispel the anxiety, right, of waiting for the big day. Because on the 5th, oh my God, the 5th is going to be crazy, right? Well, first of all, everyone's going to vote, and you got to get through the lines if you hadn't voted before, like me. But, then the count. Then the night of the 5th, we're going to count, and it's not going to be over. So the whole thing about, we'll look at projections, of course, throughout different states, and then we'll get to the 7 that are so important: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. We'll think about all those and see what happens there. And then come November 18th, we'll see what we know. And I'll do the show a second time. So November 4th and the 18th at the Marsh, San Francisco. That's at 1082 Valencia Street. 1082 Valencia. I think it's 1082. Yeah, 1082. It's 1062. I don't want you to go to the vibrator store or whatever is next to it. I think a restaurant. 1062 Valencia Street, San Francisco. My old home. I mean, I grew up there, around there, on Guerrero. Show starts at 7. Don't miss it. November 4th. Emil, Amok. I'm doing Trans Dad. Like I said, it's an election issue. I'll explain it there. Trans Dad. I'll explain it there. You got to see it. Go to themarsh.org/Monday-night-marsh-stream. Oh my God. What a website. themarsh.org/Monday-night-marsh-stream. It'll get you to the site where you can get all the information you want. And then you'll say, what is this Emil Amok thing? Yeah, it says Emil Guillermo. And it says vegan trans dad. No, it says trans dad. It just says trans dad. And here, I'll share it with you. If you're on the scoper, there it is. See, trans dad. Show description. Emil Amok had 2 daughters until 3rd. What to do when you lose a son to the culture wars. And intriguing. I think that's intriguing. So go to the Marsh, November 4th, and I do it again on November 18th. I'll be happier November 18th if November 5th works out. But if it doesn't, I'll still have a lot to say. You know that. You know I will have a lot to say. But go to, once again, dare I say, to get tickets, themarsh.org/Monday-night-marsh-stream. And once again, the sliding scale, you can pay nothing, you can pay everything, but I don't get any of that money. The Marsh gets it, and they deserve it. I love the Marsh. It got me started in this thing, in doing stories, and doing stand-up even. Because when the story people said, oh, too many laughs. And then, I'll go do stand-up, and the stand-up people say, oh, too much story. And so now, I figured, stand-up is one thing, storytelling is another. This is storytelling/theater, performance, solo, art. Oh, forget the art part. That's so pretentious. But a fun show. Please try to make it November 4th and 18th at the San Francisco Marsh. All right, I did an essay for this book, Bigotry on Broadway, which was an anthology edited by Ishmael Reed and Carla Blank, published by Baraka Books, a nice book company out of Canada. And I I'm going to read an essay that I wrote for them, and it's an essay that I did about South Pacific. Yesterday, Mitzi Gaynor died, and I know people of a certain age know Mitzi Gaynor, right? She was blonde, she was kind of cutesy, she's the love interest in South Pacific, and she's Nellie. And you know, as I was growing up, people referred to South Pacific all around me, but you know, I didn't come from like a showbiz family. My family didn't go see the movies or Broadway shows when they came to San Francisco. I I think my mom did take me to see Mary Poppins. We were culturally aware, and we saw 101 Dalmatians. So we weren't totally like bumpkins. She knew, take your kids to this, they'll know that they're part of the culture, the American culture. My mom, an immigrant, of course, from the Philippines. And my dad just said, yeah, I made enough money this week. Oh, you take them to the movies. Take them to the movies. But they never saw South Pacific, although it was in the culture, South Pacific, right? And so some people of a certain age will know this, but a lot of people, younger people under 30, who aren't like Broadway types, you know, there's a certain type that like musicals. I don't want to overgeneralize, but there are a certain type that know musicals. And then there are those who don't. Because South Pacific is kind of like a perennial, you know. I got to wash that man right out of my hair. You know that. I mean, they know all those references, right? Great American Songbook, Emil. So when Mitzi Gaynor died, it was a big deal. And I remember I was watching CNN, and one anchor turns to the male anchor and says, "Oh, the female anchor says, I love South Pacific. I used to watch it all the time." And the male anchor said, "Oh yeah, that's great." And she said, "You saw it, did you?" The male anchor said, "Can't say that I did." And it was kind of awkward because it was definitely a thing that, you know, he quickly went to break. But she wanted to talk on and on about South Pacific, and she couldn't. Only because Mitzi Gaynor, right? Mitzi Gaynor had passed. And as I said, Filipinos are prone to like blondes because of history. It just is, right? Because, you know, Filipinos could get, you know, killed for being with a white girl, specifically a blonde. And so, of course, me, I love blondes. It's sort of like the revenge of my father. Emil, you won't marry a Filipino nurse, you'll marry a blonde. That just, I don't know, it happened. So, so I love Mitzi Gaynor, and I feel bad that she's passed away. But I also want to put into context what South Pacific means. Because I think a lot of people don't understand South Pacific. They don't, the nice music. That's what my essay's for. And by the way, we're coming live now because I'm going to show my empathy for the world today. I'm getting a root canal. I mean, do I need it? It seems like you're having a lot of root canals, Emil. It seems like you have a lot of dental problems. I guess being a vegan doesn't help your teeth. Well, all that grinding of asparagus and broccoli must have destroyed your teeth. No, it's not that. It's just, you know, years of semi-neglect. And now it's come to roost, and I have to have, it seems like, an alarming number of root canals, or an alarming amount of empathy that I'm going to have for the world in a few hours. So I'm doing this while I'm not numbed up. You can say, oh, his cheeks aren't fat. Oh, he hadn't had to numb up or anything. He's like fine. He's normal. So that's why I'm doing this now. So the confluence of my root canal and Mitzi Gaynor's death, and yes, I wrote that essay in this anthology, Bigotry on Broadway, published by Baraka Books last year. So I'm going to read my essay. And my essay is entitled Emil Guillermo, Neither Cockeyed Nor an Optimist about South Pacific. Using that phrase about being a cockeyed optimist. That's another big song in the 1949 musical. That's why you don't know it. It's 19. Of course, Emil. I'm a Z. I'm a millennial. I don't know that stuff. You should. American Songbook. But I'm going to expose it here. Because if Ensign Nellie Forbush, played by Mitzi Gaynor, Nellie Forbush, USN, is the cockeyed optimist, make me the modern Asian American pessimist. Though South Pacific has been hailed ever since it came on the scene in 1949 as Rogers and Hammerstein's antidote to bigotry. That's what it was supposed to be, an antidote to bigotry. I remain unmoved. It was never an antidote to anything of the sort. Rather, it was an enabler that flashed its own toned-down bigotry for a mostly privileged white theater audience of its day. And the audience got just what it wanted. Toothsome tunes to forget their troubles while sipping a Mai Tai fantasy. South Pacific is the story of a mostly white military waiting idly in the wings to fight a war fueled by xenophobia. At its core, South Pacific is about Americans in a foreign conflict made tolerable by dueling love stories and beautiful songs that are now part of that American Songbook I keep talking about. That part is undeniable. But in South Pacific, love doesn't triumph over all. War is not averted in favor of a peacetime love-in. The war finally kicks in and conveniently claims the life of one of the musical's heroes who may have gone too far in his interracial coupling. Oh, this is not a spoiler alert. This helps you understand it. Don't give me the, oh, spoiler alert, oh, you spoiled it for me. No, I'm enlightening it for you. I'm getting you to see it so you understand what went through the culture in 1949. So the question is, was Lieutenant Joe Cable's death a coincidence or consequence of his love of the Polynesian Liat? It essentially turns to a pandering message to whites, not a condemnation of bigotry, but also a warning that interracial love leads to ruin, not celebration. And that's like the takeaway that most people don't get, because they see it, oh, it's a love story. No. It's a warning that interracial love is not good. Compared to the musical's main event. Now, that's one love story. The other love story, the main event, the love story of Nellie and Emil. Nellie, Mitzi Gaynor, Emil. He spells it with an E, but that's all right. White status is never threatened or compromised, but restored and preserved. People of color remain subjugated in the ways people of color were always subjugated in those days, as servile or infantile. In this case, literally infantilized. It has to be said that the sexist overtones of post-World War II America are at times even more cringeworthy than the racist ones in South Pacific. While the white women are all dames and objectified as such, it's countered with the image of the strong, conniving woman, Bloody Mary, played with a menacing charm by the late actress Juanita Hall, an African-American in real life who could pass as a dark-skinned Polynesian. It's like a casting precursor to Hamilton, only here it's replacing a fringe other, an obscure Pacific Islander, with a black who passes for Asian. Is that kosher? Or is Asian the gateway drug cure-all for all racism? A half step or shade at a time? Curiously, other than Hall, I didn't see any black faces in this anti-bigotry tale. Remember, that was billed as anti-bigotry. Asian was just easier to handle, I guess, in 1949. From her intro set piece to her alluring Bali High, Bloody Mary, as she was known, makes things happen in South Pacific. She's the charming grass skirt dealer who sees pimping her young daughter to an officer as the best opportunity to a better life for her family. In sum, we have a grand confection of a musical sprinkled with bits of troubling bigotry, but nothing that challenges the realm of acceptable American racist behavior too much. Not too much. Not even in the 40s or 50s, and certainly not now. Indeed, the show is barely woke by today's standards. Today's general audience would shudder at any mention of the N-word, unless it were produced by Jay-Z. South Pacific captures the hate of the day with the casual use of the J word for the Japanese enemy. Back then, saying Jap to show a jingoistic hate and disrespect to the Japanese was ubiquitous in society. Doesn't make it right, not as Japanese Americans were imprisoned in horse barns and other isolated camps in one of the darkest periods of America's racist history. South Pacific's libretto is littered with the J word. By 1958, the musical was turned into a practically pre-psychedelic movie, dripping in punch bowl color. Also directed by Joshua Logan, the film had some of the same actors, notably Hall's Bloody Mary, but in less than 10 years, the script changed the J word to the full word Japanese, or it simply eliminated from some passages. Is that progress? Maybe. Not much. Seeing South Pacific go from Broadway to film is like noticing all the lumps under yesterday's Oriental rug. As mild as the show's attempt at exposing ugly bigotry was, some people were threatened by even the suggestion of interracial marriage. Hard to imagine this about a musical whose calling card is Some Enchanted Evening. There were protests during the National Road Tour in Georgia in 1953 when white audiences complained about the love story involving the white military nurse, Nellie Forbush, and a French plantation owner, Emil Debec, the character. Nellie Forbush was Mitzi Gaynor, by the way. And Emil Debec had mixed-race children from a previous marriage. Theater writer Andrea Most wrote that the protests were led by Georgia politicians who were part of the anti-communist fervor of post-World War II and the House Un-American Activities Committee. They saw intermarriage as linked to communism and a threat to America, and tried to blunt the musical's popularity as anti-American. It was Love's Red Scare. When I was a young adult, older friends who knew of South Pacific would tease me about the Becks being an Emil, like me. It was just rare to see anyone like me on any Broadway or film production. A name was close enough, but South Pacific was never meant for me. My parents were Filipino-American immigrants from a little further west of the musical's island setting. I was born during the years in between the play's Broadway debut in 1949 and the 1958 movie. I was not its target demographic. The play was intended for the Nellie Forbushes in the audience to have their consciences rocked in order to consider such things as people who are the other as real people. That's Nellie's and Lieutenant Cable's story. Certainly, it's not the story of Emil's servants, Henry or Marcel. Bit parts, but they always seemed big to me. They reminded me of my father. I wish I could say all I know about race and intermarriage I learned from Rogers and Hammerstein, but that would be a lie. We didn't need the real South Pacific. We had our own Asian, Caucasian issues right here at home. My father was born in 1906 in America's first colony, the Philippines. Arrived as an American national in 1928, just in time for the Great Depression. By 1930, 30,000 Filipino men were in the U.S., mostly in California, and male to female ratios of 14-1 due to the demand for common labor. Whites claimed the Filipinos took not only jobs, but their white women. It created a sexual tension and jealousy that resulted in race-mixing Filipinos being killed and even lynched in California. It's true. On top of that were racist laws that prevented land ownership and racial intermarriage. Most Filipinos could not start a family until the middle 50s, when after the war more Filipino women were allowed into the U.S. A whole generation passed before my father was able to meet and marry my mother. I see Emil's servants, and it reminds me of my dad, who served wealthy diners in restaurants and hotels during the height of South Pacific's fame. I wonder how many of them wanted to call him Henry or Marcel, or ever, if it even, they even wondered if he had a name. Filipinos had their own World War II issues, as the Philippines was a key theater of battle for General Douglas MacArthur. As the war progressed to the Philippines, FDR called on Filipinos to fight alongside the U.S. in exchange for citizenship and benefits. Thousands of Filipinos answered the call, only to have the promise reneged by the U.S. with the Rescission Act of 1946. Some veterans are still waiting to be made whole. It's an historical pattern I thought of as I read the libretto and saw the lines of Henry, Marcel, or Emil's young mixed-race kids. They weren't invisible to me. I also knew Emil was not Emil. E-M-I-L-E was not E-M-I-L, me. Emile de Bec was from the colonial French ruling class, not some Asian or Polynesian success story or a privileged person of color, someone who could be played by, say, The Rock, half black, half Samoan, perhaps a modern Juanita Hall. Emil is definitely white. It makes the relationship with Nellie Forbush not so odd. When Emil and Nellie Forbush shoot Mitzi Gaynor, it's actually quite natural. Colonizers attract. Emil is also a man who's running away from a secret past, from bullies in his native France. He says, who finds himself on an island where he meets Nellie, his true love, a blonde hick from the sticks. Little Rock. Oh, Arkansas. Like Bill Clinton. Oh, he's from Hope, Arkansas. But Nellie is equally out of place on a much bigger rock in the south of a different kind, trying to undo her upbringing. And so we have a new equation brewing of geography and class, where we're all searching for that one thing on some enchanted evening. An odd moment comes early in Act 1, when Nellie reveals she's not concerned about Emil's age or his foreignness. She doesn't even care that Emil has confessed that he is a murderer. He's a murderer. You have just told me that you killed a man and that it's all right. Nellie tells him, I hardly know you, and yet I know it's all right. Oh my God. Nellie, Mitzi Gaynor, is willing to forgive a confessed murderer. That's all right. You're okay with murder? Nellie Forbush would have been an ideal OJ juror. She is not, however, okay with Emil having children with a woman of color. Yes, murder okay. Children with a woman of color, Nellie doesn't ever mention race. She doesn't come out and object to Emil being with a Polynesian woman. Instead, she states her objection to the woman you had before, her color mixing, miscegenation. It was worse than murder. It was the killing off of the white race and provides the subtext of white supremacy at play. Nellie surmises she can't help her bigotry. She was born that way, not like Lady Gaga, more like David Duke. But as the song goes, that's not necessarily the case. Cut to the show's most important song, the preachy evidentiary proclamation, "You've got to be carefully taught," provides the play's insight and the key message. You're not born with racism. It happens after you're born, sings Lieutenant Joe Cable. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You have to be carefully taught, as the lyrics go. If only we could sing away racism. So that's the problem with the show more than 70 years later. It leaves us with a few good songs for a karaoke night among people of a certain age, but South Pacific is not the songbook of a revolution. No one was singing Carefully Taught, the song, during the civil rights surge in 1964 or 1965, or when the cities burned around the country during that decade, or when the anti-war marches began. Can you imagine Martin Luther King Jr. at the March on Washington breaking into happy talk? You got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? Me neither. In today's world, these Rodgers and Hammerstein ditties barely pass for prehistoric diversity training. But let's be fair. They are locked in time and intended for latent and blatant white races to reconsider their feelings. They weren't songs to rise up a populace. And because of that, more than 7 decades later, no matter how many times the show's been revived the last 12 years, it just seems like a dated relic, a sad tribute to the snail-paced evolution of our country's racial mindset. Just a marker on choppy ocean waters way south of Hawaii. The tunes are still toothsome, and even I admit to humming happy talk as I write my essay. But relevant, maybe if Chance the Rapper and Justin Bieber did an update, or Kanye West and Taylor Swift. South Pacific made bigotry and the fight against it entertaining enough in its day for Broadway. I just don't expect to see anyone humming "You've Got to Be Carefully Taught" at a BLM march anytime soon. It would have to be some enchanted protest. And that's my essay. You catch it in this book, Bigotry on Broadway. Baraka Books publishes it. Anthology edited by Ishmael Reed and Carla Blank. I wrote it a couple years ago when BLM was a big thing. I mean, BLM now, I don't know, somewhat discredited. Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's still a thing, kind of, but as an organization, I mean, as an idea, as a memory, but anyway, that was my response to South Pacific. And I admit, I was a Johnny-come-lately. It was just all around in the culture. But it was not, I didn't really look at it and compare the Broadway show with the film version until later. And then, of course, I saw the film version and the music. And the music is, as I said, it's catchy. I had trouble with the story and the history and the lesson. But if you're the type like I have been with rock and roll through the years, and you can listen to a song and you're just into, I can dance to it, I can sing to it. I don't know what it means, I don't know what the lyrics are. If you're one of those, then fine, enjoy it. But if you're into the holistic part of appreciation of this thing, what does it mean? What are the words mean? What are the actors? Who is Nellie Forbush? What is she escaping? What is she getting out of this Emil DeBeck relationship. And what about that murder thing? Emil DeBeck is running away from murder, and Nellie's willing to forgive him for that, but not for having interracial kids? Oh. So problematic in 2024, which is why I imagine a lot of people who would revive the play for high schools, right? The protests I've seen in the last few years have been high schools are reviving this and being shut down by the woke folk. But the woke folk have a point. South Pacific is, listen to the records. You don't have to see the full production. If you see the full production, well, it was intended, I think, to reinforce the time in 1949, 1950, 1960. But I'm writing 2020, 2024. This is my response to South Pacific. And I can nod my head to the music, but not to the whole production. Not nod in agreement, just nod saying, oh yeah, nice, toothsome songs, toothsome tunes, but troubling otherwise. That's my essay. If you've missed it, if you joined us late, just go back and rewind, use your finger, rewind, and catch my essay. Once again, it's available in Bigotry on Broadway, an anthology published by Baraka Books a couple years back, and I'm one of the contributors. But I have to say, South Pacific is part of our. It's in the Great American Songbook, right? When Mitzi Gaynor died the other day, yesterday, or when the news was released, she's an icon as Nellie Forbush. And as I said, as I integrated, as I responded, talking about my father, I'm telling you, when my father saw me with my wife, who's blonde, he would say, oh, we'd be shot if people saw us with a girl like that. You be careful, boy. That was with Pastor Sex Talk. Anyway, swishing out, we're going to end the show here because, as I said, today is my day of empathy. I'm going live early because I have to have a root canal. And afterwards, I'll be all puffed up, and now you can see the before. It's just he's so cheeky, that Emil. He's not puffed up from lidocaine or any of that. Now, I was surprised. My friend said, Emil, I guess being vegan doesn't help your teeth, huh? No. Years of neglect. And I'm having to deal with all. I had a tooth extraction. When this is all done, I might have as many as two root canals, and I've already had one tooth extraction. It's terrible. Anyway, there's some gaps in my mouth that I'm not revealing to you now, but anyway. Oh, the Al Smith dinner was kind of funny because now we know Donald Trump has admitted that Fox employees helped him write. Maybe some people from the Five. Maybe that got gut filled. Maybe they didn't mention any names, although Trump said this morning he was fed some money. He said some good things. And then Brian Stelter of CNN, who's been redeemed, I guess, has went on and said, hey, he had some great lines. This is the thing about Donald Trump. Talk host, good. Entertainer, good. Politician, world leader, bad. Not serious. Not a good guy. Showbiz guy, good. Political guy, not so great. He lies. I mean, he was on Fox and Friends saying, hey, women love me. Women love Trump for what he's done to reverse Roe. Women love it. No, I don't think so. I mean, that almost was as bad as saying he was the father of IVF. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris had some good jokes. She wasn't there at the Al Smith dinner, but Molly Shannon aided her in a sketch that I guess ran. And, it's for the Catholics. The Al Smith dinner helps the Diocese of New York, I guess, helps the Catholics. And, this is one of the things. When I was more of an outwardly practicing Catholic, every time I'd go to New York, it was like for 10, 15 years, I would always visit St. Patrick's because St. Patrick's was always like my oasis. That would be especially in the back. You go into the main cathedral, but if you go in the back where they have the commuter masses that are like boom, 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 every 30 minutes, a new mass. I mean, it's like, it was my refuge during times when I was hanging out in New York for a period of time. I would go there, and that would be the place where I would zone out and be peaceful. I guess that's what the homeless people do when they go there. And but I always loved St. Patrick's. This is during the renovation years. I guess it's all fully renovated now. Anyway, but now I don't stay midtown anymore. When I go to New York, I stay down in the Village, Lower East Side, with the people, down in the Ukrainian Village, and hardly ever get up to go to. The last couple times, hardly. I didn't even visit St. Pat. I feel bad because St. Patrick's, that was my jam for a while. I would go and like mellow out in that back chapel at St. Patrick's. Catholic Secrets of Emil Guillermo. And don't do that anymore. But anyway, I guess I should have known that some of the Al Smith dinner money did go to benefit the Catholics. But they got a lot of money. Catholics have a lot of money. They need a lot of money to pay out all the lawsuits for pedophilia. Like LA, I guess. All right, that's it. Another reminder to check out the Monday Night Marsh on November 4th. There, Emil Guillermo. Trans Dad, I'm calling the segment. 20-minute storytime show. It's at the Marsh in San Francisco, Valencia, and 21st. Check it out, 1062 Valencia. Valencia between 22nd and 21st. Okay. My old neighborhood. I should know those coordinates better. Check it out. And like I said, all the money goes to the Marsh. They deserve it. They just give me free time and to work out my show because I'm developing a new version of my show that I'm going to bring hopefully to other fringe festivals in 2025 and perform it here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. Maybe LA, maybe San Diego, but I'm going to go out and do more fringes as well as stand-up. Went to a stand-up show yesterday in Sacramento. Very funny. Saw Des Bishop. Very funny. Didn't do his Chinese stuff in Sacramento. He said, any Chinese people here? And when there were no Chinese people there, he shut down that stuff. He didn't mention any Chinese stuff. But in San Francisco the night before in Cobb's, oh yeah, he did all the Chinese stuff, which is kind of cool. He's funny guy, Des Bishop. Mean Dave was funny. And Ben Feldman, also funny. That was the lineup at the Punchline in Sacramento. All right. Root Canal, here I come. Replay this as you wish. I'm on early because, like I said, my weekend of empathy begins. And next week we'll have Professor Dan on talking about stuff. Oh, we're coming close. We're coming. This Trans Dad thing, November 4th and the 18th. It's it's happening election eve. I'm going to be performing at the Marsh, and I'll have a little prefatory remarks about how, well, trans is now an issue. It is an issue. It is the wedgiest wedge of all. You're just not hearing about it as much. But it is wedgy. It's wedgy. And we need to gird against it, change it. Discrimination just keeps evolving, including more people. And it just, every time you think you've won and there's some kind of social justice, there's more. There's more to do. There's always more to do. So let me also direct you to my Patreon. You can watch this in its entirety at Patreon, patreon.com/Emil Amok, EMILAMOK. I'm moving everything over there, and starting next week, not everything is going to be on the freebie sites, YouTube, or maybe just a little bit, but moving to Patreon. So check it out there. Check out my columns on Patreon too. Also on Substack, substack.com/@Emil Amok. So all sorts of places to find me, Emil Guillermo. Oh, I'll also stick the laughter yoga stuff on Patreon. We generally like to close with a little meditation. So here is me being meditative in front of my Vote t-shirt. A little loving kindness, metta, M-E-T-T-A, they call it, metta. You know, being mindful. One of the best definitions I heard was, being mindful is when you don't punch that other guy in the face. How many times have I had to be mindful? You want to, but you know you're not going to. You're not going to punch that guy in the face. That's mindfulness. So you practice that, and at the base is a loving kindness approach, metta, M-E-T-T-A, where you send out the love and it comes back. Send it out, it comes back. So like a homing pigeon. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal